I'm very, very excited today and tonight for this special interview live from Bangkok. Actually, you are both in Bangkok, myself in Kuala Lumpur. So good evening, everybody. This is our 8th interview this week in conjunction with the exhibition Exodus Deja VU. Exodus Deja VU 6th edition, virtual. Actually, we were supposed to be in New York right now, presenting Exodus Deja VU Exhibition with some activities in universities and school. And because of the pandemic, we had to, to be creative. We have to think what to do, because I really wanted to do something. And we just launched Exodus Deja VU on the World Day Refugee last Saturday with our first interviews with our photographers. And it is actually so far amazing. It is a new experience for the project. It is a new experience for all of us, actually. And I'd like to take this occasion to thank our partners, especially UNHCR, and of course, our photographers. Since 2016, this touring exhibition is traveling the world, presenting the work from different stories, different history, different part of the world. Different generation of photographers are bringing this work on refugees, mainly from different continents. So I'm very, very excited tonight because I'm introducing our photographer, Suthep Kritsanavarin. So Suthep is a photojournalist from Thailand who has chronicled environmental, social, and humanitarian issues in Southeast Asia for the last 2 decades. His work is based on a firm belief that photojournalists must act as a continuous observer of society and culture. He has to contribute to social change on a local and global level. Suthep has worked on investigative report on Rohingya since 2009. His work has chronicled Rohingyas, horrifying journeys from Burma to Bangladesh to Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and even Australia, and their hardship in these countries with moving, passionate photograph. So here we are with Suthep Kritsanavarin today, who will be interviewed by someone very, very special. Catherine Stubberfield is a senior communication officer of UNHCR Regional Bureau for Asia and the Pacific in Bangkok. Catherine has previously held diverse policy and protection position at the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Ethiopia, Thailand, and Sudan, as well as various countries for UNICEF. Prior to current role in Bangkok, Catherine served as a spokesperson and external relation officer for UNHCR regional representation in Canberra, covering Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific. So I'd like to thank you again. For everyone, write down www.exodus-dejavu.com, exodus-exodus.com to visit the exhibition right now, virtual, online. Again, thank you so much, Catherine, to be with us tonight, and welcome to Suthep Online in a minute. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Patrice. Now let's see if we can get Kun Suthep connected here. Okay, this is very promising. Kun Suthep, can you see and hear me?
Yep. Hi,
Thank
Catherine.
you for joining us. It's an honor to be speaking with you.
Me too.
To start with, Kun Suthep, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you become a photojournalist and what attracted you to this profession?
Actually, it's around a little bit more than 2 decades ago. When I'm studying in the university, I starting to go out to the countryside, to the jungle, and to see the outside world. And yeah, and in that time, when I see the people, the poor people, and the people who don't have chance to speak, and I see that something that what I can do with by myself. So I starting to thinking about the use the camera, use the photography to telling the story.
And Suthep, you've taken many particularly striking photographs of refugees and especially of the Rohingya. What drew you to this subject of refugees and stateless people?
Yeah, about the Rohingya itself, themselves, in starting in around 2008, that when I see in the television, in the news, that the some Rohingya offshore to Thailand by the, I mean the boat people, they start to offshore in southern Thailand. So I see the news, so I just have a question myself, why these people have to escape from Myanmar. In that time, actually, I have a really little knowledge about them. So I'm talking with some social workers, some people who are working on the Rohingya, like I mean, activists, human rights activists. And then, when I research more and more, so I think this we should have to highlight these people's story. So I'm talking with many people, including UNHCR. So I'm starting to go to Bangladesh camp, and later on go to Myanmar, and so on. So starting to follow those both people from many countries.
And in terms of, I guess, the global context today, we're seeing more and more displacement worldwide. For example, we had UNHCR's Global Trends Report was released just last week, showing that we now have 79.5 million people displaced around the globe. Of those, some 30 million are refugees and people displaced outside of their home country. As of course you know already, this has led to an increase in reporting and photography of refugees. And with this increased exposure of the situation and of the suffering that refugees are subject to, how can we ensure that people don't start to think that this is inevitable or banal? How can photojournalists help in this effort to keep the plight of refugees at the forefront of people's minds and at the same time make sure that they don't develop compassion fatigue?
Yeah. About that, I think nowadays even because today, I mean the last few years that the photography, photojournalism is changed. Even it changed a lot, but I think still even we have something like many people start using the mobile phone to very quick thing. But I think it's still that when as a photojournalist, as a documentary photographer, we still have to going to tell the true story. What is make us different from the sometimes when you see some news from the people who are not in this career, they are sometimes they are not care about the true story and the fact.
Absolutely.
But we,
sorry,
yeah, so we have to have a responsible how to give the correct information, the fact, and also deep story. So that is, I think, it's still that we are necessary to have I mean, the photojournalist has to tell the deep story and the true story.
And in terms of that role, that you're right, is obviously so different to an individual citizen taking photos with their phone or some of the less professional forms of photography. When you look at, for example, the seminal essay by Susan Sontag on photography, she writes about it as essentially an act of non-intervention. She refers to situations where the photographer has a choice between a photograph and a life to choose the photograph. And she argues that the person who intervenes cannot record and the person who is recording cannot intervene. You have argued, however, as Patrice also mentioned, that it's part of the role of a photojournalist to contribute to social change, whether that's on a local level or a global one. Can you expand on that? How would you respond in particular to Sontag's view?
I think as we are photographer as a career, and we have a responsible about our professional, but in the same time we are we have a title as a human from the beginning when we are born. So that is more important than it's just a photographer. So when you say that if you are in the field or in the wartime or whatever, when you see the people starting to die, what you have to do as a photographer or as a human being first. I think you have to have as a human being first thing, and secondly is your career.
Absolutely. And this actually leads very much into the next thing we wanted to ask about. At UNHCR, for example, we have really very strict internal rules that people in photographs, the subjects are treated in a respectful way, that they're portrayed with dignity, that they're able to give informed consent. But sometimes the most impactful news media in particular doesn't show human beings in a dignified way. And consent can be impossible in contexts like a war zone, for example. When we reflect on it, some of the most iconic images of the 20th century fall into this category. How do you see that issue, and how does that shape your decisions as a photographer, particularly in a field context?
Can you say again?
Sure. I mean, I know you were speaking just a moment ago about being a human being first and a photographer second. And sometimes the decisions that you're confronted with in a very short space of time, you know, a matter of a few seconds, it can be difficult to know, should I take this image? Should I then use this image of a person in a very difficult situation, not necessarily in a dignified position, where you're not always able to ask for their consent? These are challenges that photographers face in particular. How do you think about that, and particularly the fact that sometimes some of the most iconic images are in fact not taken in the best of circumstances?
I mean, for myself, as I say that yeah, life is life have to come first, and photography as a second. But I think different situation is will have a different make a decision. I cannot say right now what I will make decision in that particular time, particular event or timing. I think it's we will see. I cannot say exactly.
Sure. So it depends very much on the moment, the individual circumstances.
Yeah.
Finally, looking at this beautiful exhibition, how do you feel about seeing your work exhibited in this collection of Exodus Deja VU among 11 other photographers covering similar situations around the world? Seeing all those pictures, very different and then at the same time in some ways similar, does that change the way you see your work, your position and your impact as a photojournalist?
I think all the photographer with that all the photograph that show in this exhibition is tell the in the same time, as you say, the same story, similar story, but in the same time the different view of the different photographer, and have a and it shows us that more and more, even in this century, that even during this crisis, I mean the COVID crisis, that we still have to be concerned about the situation of the refugee around the world, especially like even in Bangladesh right now. That I also think that the UNHCR will have very concerned about those 1 million people in the camp, that they how if the virus, I mean the COVID, is spreading in the camp, that is will be very very challenging.
Indeed. And of course, your work and the work of many others that are part of this exhibition is really critical in keeping some of these issues at the forefront of people's minds. So Suthep Kritsanavarin, thank you so much for your work, and thank you very much for joining us on Instagram Live. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Bye.